The winter wind cut across the plains like a blade forged in ice. Standing Bear pressed his palm against the frozen earth and closed his eyes. At 30 winters, he carried the weight of his people on shoulders that had never known defeat in battle. The Oglala Lakota called him their protector, their voice, their chief. They did not know that inside his chest beat a heart divided against itself. The council fire crackled behind him as the elders debated the Crow delegation's proposal. Marriage alliances were nothing new among the tribes. They brought peace, trade routes, and strength against the white soldiers pushing westward. But this proposal struck different. The Crow chief offered his daughter, Bright Moon, to seal a bond between their peoples. Standing Bear had seen her once, 3 summers ago at a gathering near the Powder River. She was beautiful, intelligent, skilled in all the ways a chief's wife should be. Any man would count himself blessed. Any man whose soul did not already belong to another. Standing Bear opened his eyes and stared at the distant mountains where the sun bled red into the horizon. Somewhere beyond those peaks lived the Cheyenne, their allies, their brothers in countless battles. And among them lived Morning Rain, the woman who had claimed his heart when they were both barely old enough to ride. Her father was a Cheyenne war chief, a man Standing Bear respected above all others. Her brother was his closest friend, the one who had pulled him from a frozen river when they were boys, the one who had fought beside him against their enemies. The one who would see Standing Bear's love for his sister as the deepest betrayal. 5 years had passed since Standing Bear last allowed himself to be alone with Morning Rain. 5 years of stolen glances at tribal gatherings, of conversations that stayed carefully within the bounds of friendship, of nights when he lay awake feeling her absence like a wound that would not heal. She had never married. Neither had he. The people whispered about it, wondered why their strong young chief remained alone when women from every tribe would gladly share his lodge. They did not know that every time he closed his eyes, he saw her. The way she moved through morning mist like a spirit. The sound of her laughter, rare and precious as summer rain. The fierce intelligence in her dark eyes that saw through pretense and pride to the man beneath. The gentle strength of her hands when she had tended his wounds after a grisly attack, her touch burning through him like sacred fire. Standing Bear. The voice of White Eagle, eldest of the council, pulled him back. The old man approached slowly, his face creased with years of wisdom and war. The elders wait for your word. Standing Bear turned. Through the lodge entrance, he could see them gathered in a circle, patient and expectant. They trusted him. They had followed him through starvation winters and bloody summers. They had watched him lead war parties against their enemies and return with victory. They had seen him negotiate with the white chiefs, extracting promises that were rarely kept but sometimes bought them time. They believed in him. Tell me honestly, grandfather, Standing Bear said quietly. What happens if I refuse this marriage? White Eagle's eyes narrowed. He had lived through the great migrations, the first encounters with white settlers, the slow grinding pressure that pushed their world smaller every year. The Crow are proud. They will see it as insult. The alliance will fail. When the soldiers come, and they will come, my son, like wolves drawn to blood, we will stand alone. Our warriors are brave, but bravery does not stop bullets. Without allies, our children will know only war and loss. And if I accept, we grow strong. We trade. We survive. White Eagle paused, studying Standing Bear's face with eyes that missed nothing. But a chief who marries without love carries sadness like stones in his heart. I have seen it before. It makes a man hard, distant. Sometimes cruel. Standing Bear felt the trap closing around him like winter ice. Duty pulled him toward Bright Moon and the alliance that could save his people. Love pulled him toward Morning Rain and a happiness he had tasted only in dreams. Honor demanded he protect both, the Cheyenne friendship that had sustained his tribe for generations, and his own people's desperate need for survival. He could not have all three. Something would break. Someone would suffer. The question was whether he had the courage to choose, or the weakness to let others choose for him. I will give my answer at sunrise, Standing Bear said finally. White Eagle nodded and walked back toward the council lodge, his footsteps crunching in the snow. Standing Bear remained alone in the gathering darkness, watching stars emerge one by one across the vast sky. Somewhere under those same stars, Morning Rain was breathing, living, perhaps thinking of him as he thought of her. The distance between them was nothing, just days of travel. And yet it was everything, an impossible gulf filled with loyalty and obligation and the weight of two people's futures. He had faced Crow warriors in battle. He had stared down grizzly bears and survived blizzards that killed stronger men. He had walked into enemy camps alone to negotiate peace. But none of that had prepared him for this moment, when his greatest enemy was his own heart, and victory meant destroying the only thing he had ever wanted for himself. Standing Bear did not sleep that night. He walked the perimeter of the village, watching smoke rise from lodge fires into the star-scattered sky. Dogs followed him for a while, then wandered back to warm places. Only the night wind kept him company, whispering through bare cottonwood branches with a sound like distant voices. In the east, darkness began its slow retreat. Standing Bear climbed the small hill where his father was buried, where 3 generations of chiefs rested in the earth they had defended. He sat cross-legged before his father's grave and spoke aloud, knowing the dead could not answer but needing to speak anyway. "You told me once that a chief belongs to his people before he belongs to himself," Standing Bear said. "You said our wants are nothing against their needs. I understood those words then. But you also loved my mother. You chose her. You were happy." His voice cracked. "How do I honor both teachings, Father? How do I save our people and keep my soul?" The wind picked up, carrying the scent of snow. Standing Bear touched the medicine bundle at his chest, feeling the small stones and sage his father had given him the day he became chief. The day his childhood ended and his duty began. By the time he returned to the village, the sun was breaking over the eastern plains, painting the world in shades of gold and crimson. The council had gathered again. So had the Crow delegation, 5 proud warriors and their chief, a man called Ironhorn whose reputation for fierceness matched his years. They stood separate from the Lakota, watching Standing Bear approach with expressions that revealed nothing. White Eagle gestured for Standing Bear to sit at the center of the council circle. The chief's place. The place of final words. "We have heard the Crow offer," White Eagle began, his voice carrying across the circle. "An alliance sealed with marriage between Standing Bear and Bright Moon, daughter of Chief Ironhorn. This is our brother's decision to make. Let him speak." Standing Bear looked around the circle at faces he had known all his life. Red Cloud, the war chief who had taught him to fight. Many Horses, who had delivered him as a baby during a storm. Singing Woman, who had mourned with him when his father died. They were not just his people. They were his family, his responsibility, the reason he breathed. He turned to Ironhorn. "Your daughter is known for her wisdom and courage. Any man would be honored by such a union. But I cannot accept." The words fell like stones into still water, creating ripples of shock and confusion. Ironhorn's face darkened. "You refuse? You insult my daughter and my people with rejection." "Not rejection," Standing Bear said carefully. "Honesty. I cannot offer your daughter what she deserves. My heart is not free to give." The Crow chief stood, his hand moving to his knife. His warriors tensed. "You dare speak of love when our people's survival hangs in balance? What weakness has infected the great Standing Bear?" "Not weakness." Red Cloud rose beside his chief. "Honor. A man who lies to secure power is no man at all. Standing Bear speaks truth, even when truth costs him everything." "Then your alliance is refused." Ironhorn's voice was cold as mountain ice. "When the white soldiers come for you, remember this moment. Remember that pride killed your people." The Crow delegation turned and walked from the council circle. Standing Bear watched them go, feeling the weight of their departure like a physical blow. He had just refused the best chance his tribe had for survival. The elders would question him. The young warriors would doubt him. And yet, when he searched his heart, he found no regret for refusing to build his people's future on a lie. But the harder choice still waited. White Eagle spoke into the heavy silence. "You have made your decision regarding the Crow. Now you must make another. What will you do about the one who holds your heart?" Standing Bear had not told them about Morning Rain. He had guarded that secret like sacred fire. But White Eagle saw everything. The old man always had. "The Cheyenne woman," Red Cloud said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Morning Rain. I have seen how you look at her. How she looks at you." Singing Woman leaned forward. "Does she return your feelings?" "Yes." The word came out rough, weighted with years of silence. "But her brother does not know. Her father does not know. If I go to them now, if I speak my heart, I risk destroying the friendship between our tribes. Swift Arrow sees me as his brother. When he learns I love his sister, that I have loved her in secret for 5 years, he will see betrayal. He will see a man who has dishonored his family by wanting what he had no right to want. Or, Singing Woman said gently, he will see 2 people who have suffered in silence to protect those they love. That is not dishonor, my son. That is sacrifice." Standing Bear shook his head. "You do not know Swift Arrow. His honor is absolute. In his eyes, a man who wants his sister should have come forward immediately, should have asked permission properly. The secrecy will poison everything. Then you will lose both, White Eagle said flatly. The Crow Alliance is gone. If you do not fight for Morning Rain, you will have nothing but duty and loneliness. Is that the chief you wish to be? Is that the man your father raised? Standing Bear closed his eyes. His father had been strong, yes, but also joyful. His mother had brought light into their lodge, and his father had let that light feed him, sustain him through dark times. Standing Bear had watched them together and learned that strength did not mean standing alone. It meant knowing what was worth fighting for. I will go to the Cheyenne, he said finally. I will speak to Swift Arrow and to Morning Rain's father. I will tell them the truth and face whatever comes. If Swift Arrow calls me enemy, so be it. If I lose his friendship, I lose it. But I will not lose Morning Rain without fighting for her. I will not spend the rest of my life wondering what might have been if I had found the courage to try. Red Cloud smiled for the first time that morning. Now that is the Standing Bear I know. The one who faces impossible odds and charges anyway. You will need witnesses, White Eagle said. Take Red Cloud with you. Take Singing Woman. Let them speak on your behalf when words fail you. And Standing Bear. The old man's eyes grew distant. Be prepared. The path you have chosen will test more than your heart. It will test everything you are. Standing Bear stood, feeling both lighter and heavier than he had moments before. The decision was made. The die was cast. In 3 days' time, he would ride to the Cheyenne winter camp and lay his heart bare before the people who trusted him, loved him, called him brother. And Morning Rain would finally know that she was not alone in her longing, that across the distance and the years, he had been loving her just as fiercely, just as hopelessly, just as completely as she loved him. The Cheyenne winter camp sat in a protected valley where the Little Bighorn River curved like a silver thread through snow-covered earth. Standing Bear approached with Red Cloud and Singing Woman riding flanking him, 3 figures dark against the white landscape. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. They were spotted long before they reached the camp. Cheyenne scouts materialized from the tree line, weapons ready, then lowered them in recognition. One rode ahead fast to announce their arrival. By the time Standing Bear entered the camp, half the tribe had gathered to greet them. And there, standing beside her father's lodge, was Morning Rain. She wore a dress of soft deerskin decorated with blue and white beads, her black hair falling loose around her shoulders. When her eyes met his, Standing Bear saw everything he needed to know. She had heard something in the wind, sensed something coming. The careful distance she usually maintained had crumbled. Her face showed naked hope and terror in equal measure. Then Swift Arrow stepped between them, his smile wide and genuine. Brother, you honor us with your presence. He clasped Standing Bear's arm in the warrior's greeting, the grip strong and trusting. Come. Father will want to see you. We have much to discuss. The white soldiers are moving again, building more forts. We need to plan. Standing Bear forced himself to return the smile, though it felt like breaking glass. I come for different reasons today. I must speak with you and your father. It is urgent. Something in his tone made Swift Arrow's smile falter. The Cheyenne warrior was no fool. He had survived 25 winters through instinct and observation. His eyes narrowed, flicking between Standing Bear and his sister, who had gone very still. Come then, Swift Arrow said, his voice cooler now. Father is inside. Gray Wolf, the Cheyenne war chief, sat by his fire with the bearing of a man who had seen and survived everything. At 50 winters, his hair held more silver than black, but his eyes remained sharp as flint. He gestured for Standing Bear to sit, noting Red Cloud and Singing Woman taking positions behind their chief. You bring witnesses to a friendly visit, Gray Wolf observed. This tells me your words carry weight and danger. Speak plainly, Standing Bear. We have been brothers too long for elaborate dancing around truth. Standing Bear had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times during the 3-day ride. Now, facing the 2 men he respected most in this world, the words tangled in his throat. He looked at Swift Arrow, his oldest friend, the boy who had become his brother through shared blood and battle. 5 years ago, Standing Bear began, I fell in love with Morning Rain. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the fire seemed to stop crackling. Swift Arrow's face went through several expressions, confusion, disbelief, then slowly hardening into something cold and dangerous. You dare speak these words in my father's lodge? Swift Arrow's voice was deadly quiet. You dare admit you have wanted my sister while standing beside me as my friend? While eating at our fire and sleeping under our protection? I have never dishonored her, Standing Bear said quickly. I have never touched her beyond what propriety allows. I have never even spoken my feelings to her directly. But yes, I have loved her. I love her still. I love her enough that I can no longer stay silent, even knowing it may cost me your friendship. Even knowing it may cost me everything. Grey Wolf raised a hand, forestalling his son's response. And my daughter? Does she return these feelings? She does. Morning Rain's voice came from the lodge entrance. She had followed them inside, protocol forgotten. Her hands were clenched at her sides, but her voice was steady. I have loved him for 5 years, father. I have waited for him to speak. I have refused every other suitor because my heart was already given. If you wish to punish someone for this secret, punish me. I am the one who should have come to you first. Swift Arrow turned on his sister. You knew? You have been carrying this deception for 5 years and said nothing. What should I have said? Morning Rain's eyes flashed with sudden anger. That I loved a man who could not act on his feelings? That my heart chose someone whose duty to his people left no room for personal desires? Would you have understood, brother? Or would you have done exactly what you are doing now, seeing only betrayal where there is nothing but sacrifice and pain? He is my friend. Swift Arrow's shout echoed through the lodge. He sat beside me at my wedding feast. He helped name my son. He held my father's coat while father led ceremonies. All the while, he was looking at my sister, wanting my sister, coveting what he had no right to covet. I gave him that right. Grey Wolf's words cut through the argument like a blade. Both his children fell silent, staring at their father. 3 years ago, when Morning Rain refused her 5th suitor, I asked her why. She would not tell me directly, but I am not blind. I saw how she looked at the Lakota chief. I saw how he looked at her when he thought no one was watching. I saw 2 honorable people torturing themselves with silence. He turned to Standing Bear. I have been waiting for you to find your courage. I had almost given up hope. Better late than never, I suppose. But now we must address the harder question. What do you offer my daughter? What life can you give her? Standing Bear felt the ground shift beneath him. Grey Wolf was not rejecting him. But Swift Arrow stood rigid with fury, and that pain cut deeper than any wound. I offer her everything I am, Standing Bear said. My lodge, my protection, my heart until the day I die. I offer her a place of honor among my people. I offer her the truth that she is the only woman I have ever loved, the only one I will ever love. I offer her honesty now, after years of silence, and I understand if that comes too late. It is not enough. Swift Arrow's voice was hard as stone. You have played us false, Standing Bear. You have let me call you brother while hiding truth from me. How do I trust you now? How do I believe anything you say? How do I give my sister to a man who has already proven he can lie through silence? The accusation struck home. Standing Bear had no defense because Swift Arrow was not entirely wrong. The secret had been a kind of lie, even if told to protect everyone involved. Red Cloud stepped forward. May I speak? Grey Wolf nodded. The old Lakota warrior looked at Swift Arrow with understanding in his weathered face. Your anger is just, Red Cloud said. You feel betrayed by silence. But ask yourself this, Swift Arrow. If Standing Bear had come to you 5 years ago, barely old enough to be called a man, would you have heard him? Or would you have seen a boy with no right to reach so high? Would you have blessed this union, or would you have sent him away with wounded pride and broken friendship? Swift Arrow said nothing, but something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, perhaps. Or the painful recognition of truth. He waited, Red Cloud continued, not because he was weak or deceitful, but because he was trying to honor everyone. Your friendship. Your father's trust. His own people's needs. The only person he did not honor was himself. That is not betrayal, Swift Arrow. That is the opposite. That is a man putting everyone else's happiness before his own. Pretty words. Swift Arrow's voice was bitter, but less certain. They do not change the facts. No, Singing Woman spoke now, her voice gentle but firm. But perhaps the facts are not as simple as you believe. Your sister has suffered too. She has lived in silence, watching her friends marry and have children while her own heart remained frozen. She has done this to protect you from anger, to protect Standing Bear from your rejection, to protect the alliance between your peoples. Where is your compassion for her pain? Swift Arrow looked at Morning Rain, really looked at her, and Standing Bear saw the moment when anger began to crack. Beneath the fury was love, fierce protective love for a sister who had quietly endured years of loneliness. Why did you not come to me? Swift Arrow asked her, his voice breaking. I am your brother. I would have listened. Would you? Morning Rain's eyes filled with tears. Would you have understood? Or would you have done what you always do, decided what was best for me without asking what I wanted? I love you, brother. But you have always seen me as something to protect, not as a woman capable of choosing her own path. The truth of her words settled over the lodge like snow. Grey Wolf watched his children with something like sorrow in his eyes, then turned to Standing Bear. You have spoken your heart. You have faced the consequences. Now comes the test that matters most. He stood, his tall frame casting shadows in the firelight. Tomorrow, you will fight. You and Swift Arrow, armed combat, until one yields or cannot continue. If you win, you have proven your strength and your right to claim my daughter. If you lose. He paused. Then perhaps you did not want her enough. Standing Bear's blood went cold. You would have us fight? Brother against brother? You are not brothers anymore, Grey Wolf said flatly. That bond is broken until Swift Arrow says otherwise. You are a suitor who has offended a warrior's honor. In our tradition, such matters are settled with blade and courage. Tomorrow at dawn. The whole camp will witness. Prepare yourself, Standing Bear. My son is very, very angry. Standing Bear lay awake in the guest lodge, listening to the camp settle into sleep. Red Cloud and Singing Woman had tried to speak with him, offer strategies and comfort, but he had sent them away. What was there to say? Tomorrow he would fight the man he loved like a brother, perhaps kill him or be killed, all for the chance to marry the woman who had owned his heart for 5 years. The insanity of it pressed down on him like physical weight. And yet, beneath the fear and grief, something else stirred. Relief. The secret was spoken. The silence was broken. Whatever happened tomorrow, at least the truth was free. A soft sound at the lodge entrance made him sit up. Morning Rain slipped inside, moving like shadow. She should not be here. If anyone discovered her visiting him alone at night, it would only fuel Swift Arrow's rage. But Standing Bear could not bring himself to send her away. I had to see you, she whispered, kneeling beside him. I had to tell you that whatever happens tomorrow, you have already given me more than I dared hope for. You spoke. You fought for me. You risked everything. In the dimness, he could barely see her face, but he felt her presence like warmth against winter cold. I should have spoken years ago. I was a coward. No. Her hand found his in the darkness. The touch sent lightning through him. You were kind. You were trying to protect everyone. But Standing Bear, tomorrow you must fight differently. You must be willing to hurt my brother. He is skilled, faster than you remember, and he will be fighting with everything he has. If you hold back, if you let your friendship weaken your hand, he will destroy you. I cannot kill Swift Arrow. Even if I could, how would you forgive me? Morning Rain's grip tightened. My brother is proud and angry, but he is not stupid. This fight is not about killing. It is about respect. My father knows that. Swift Arrow knows it too, underneath his rage. He needs to test you, to prove to himself that you are strong enough to protect me, worthy enough to deserve me. You must meet him as an equal, not as a guilty friend seeking punishment. Standing Bear pulled her closer, unable to resist anymore. She came to him without hesitation, fitting against him like she was made for that space. He buried his face in her hair, breathing in the scent of sage and wood smoke. I am so tired of fighting what I feel, he whispered against her skin. These years have been a kind of death. I know. Her voice caught. Every gathering, seeing you across the fire, keeping distance between us like enemy territory. Watching you grow into a great chief, knowing I could never stand beside you. It has been torture. They held each other in silence, storing up warmth against tomorrow's violence. Then Morning Rain pulled back, her hands framing his face in the darkness. Promise me something. Promise that if you win, you will not apologize anymore. Not to my brother, not to anyone. We have done nothing wrong. We loved each other and stayed silent to protect others. That is honor, not shame. Do not carry guilt into our life together. And if I lose? Then I will mourn you for the rest of my days and never marry another. My heart has only ever been yours, Standing Bear. It will remain yours even if you are not here to hold it. He kissed her then, for the first time, and it was nothing like he had imagined. It was better and worse, sweeter and more painful, everything and not nearly enough. When they finally broke apart, both were shaking. Morning Rain left as quietly as she had come, disappearing into the night. Standing Bear lay back down, his heart racing, his skin still burning where she had touched him. Whatever tomorrow brought, he had this moment. This one perfect moment when she was his and he was hers, and nothing else mattered. Dawn came too quickly. The sky had barely begun to lighten when Standing Bear emerged from the guest lodge to find the entire Cheyenne camp gathered in a wide circle around a cleared space. Men, women, children, all watching in silence. News of the coming fight had spread through the camp like wildfire. Swift Arrow stood at the center of the circle, stripped to the waist despite the cold, a long knife in his hand. His face was set in hard lines, showing nothing of the friend Standing Bear had known. This was a warrior preparing for battle, focused and dangerous. Grey Wolf stepped forward. The rules are simple. You fight until one cannot continue or yields. No killing blows, but everything else is permitted. This is not war. This is testing. Standing Bear, if you win, you claim my daughter with my blessing. If you lose, you return to your people alone and never speak of this again. Swift Arrow, if you win, the matter is settled and buried. If you lose, you accept your sister's choice without further protest. Are the terms clear? Both men nodded. Standing Bear removed his shirt and drew his own knife, feeling the morning cold bite into his skin. Across from him, Swift Arrow's eyes held only ice. Begin. Swift Arrow came fast, faster than Standing Bear anticipated. The Cheyenne warrior was slightly smaller but quicker, his movements fluid as water. The first strike nearly opened Standing Bear's ribs. He twisted away, feeling the blade whisper past. They circled each other, feet finding purchase on frozen ground. The watching crowd was absolutely silent. Standing Bear could feel morning rain somewhere behind him, watching, praying perhaps. He could feel the weight of two tribes' expectations pressing down. Swift Arrow attacked again, a combination of strikes that drove Standing Bear backward. Metal rang against metal as their knives met, sparked, separated. Swift Arrow was not holding back. Every strike was meant to wound, to punish, to prove something. You lied to me, Swift Arrow hissed between attacks. Years of lies. Not lies. Standing Bear blocked another strike. Silence. There is a difference. Not to me. The fury in those words gave Swift Arrow strength but also made him reckless. He overextended, and Standing Bear saw his opening. He could have ended it there, could have disarmed his friend. Instead, he pulled the strike, leaving only a shallow cut across Swift Arrow's shoulder. The crowd gasped. Swift Arrow fell back, touching the wound, staring at Standing Bear with something new in his eyes. Confusion. Maybe the first crack in his anger. What are you doing? Swift Arrow demanded. Fight me properly. I am fighting you properly. What you saw just now was not mercy. It was control. I could have taken your arm. I chose not to because I am not your enemy, Swift Arrow. I never was. You want my sister? Yes. And you love your sister. We are fighting over the same thing, her happiness. That makes us allies, not enemies. Swift Arrow roared and charged again, but Standing Bear saw the pattern now. His friend was fighting with rage, not strategy. Standing Bear began to counter more effectively, landing strikes that drew blood but avoided serious damage. A cut along Swift Arrow's ribs. A slice across his thigh. Small wounds, controlled wounds, wounds that proved skill without causing lasting harm. The Cheyenne warrior was breathing hard now, blood streaking his skin. Standing Bear had taken damage too, a gash on his left arm, another across his chest, but he was conserving energy where Swift Arrow was burning through his. You are better than this, Standing Bear said, circling. You taught me half of what I know. Where is the warrior who saved my life? Where is my brother? You lost that title when you coveted what was mine. She is not yours. The words came out harder than Standing Bear intended. She never was. She belongs to herself, and she chose me. Just as I chose her. You can accept that and keep both of us, or you can cling to wounded pride and lose us both. Which matters more, Swift Arrow? Your anger or your love? Something broke in Swift Arrow's eyes. Or maybe it was breaking throughout the fight, each controlled strike from Standing Bear chipping away at the certainty of his rage. He lowered his knife slightly, chest heaving, blood and sweat mixing on his skin. She is my little sister. I have protected her since the day she was born. How do I give her to someone who might hurt her? Standing Bear lowered his own knife. You do not give her to me. You let her go to where she has always wanted to be. And you trust that the man who loved her enough to suffer in silence for 5 years will love her enough to spend a lifetime making her happy. That is all any brother can do, Swift Arrow. Let her live her own life. The silence stretched. Then Swift Arrow dropped his knife entirely. The blade hit the frozen earth with a dull thud that seemed impossibly loud. "I yield," Swift Arrow said quietly. Then, louder, so everyone could hear, "I yield." The crowd erupted in voices, some approving, others shocked. Grey Wolf stepped into the circle, his face unreadable. He looked at both bleeding warriors, then at his daughter. "Morning Rain, come forward." She walked into the circle, her head high, and Standing Bear saw strength in her that took his breath away. This was no fragile thing needing protection. This was a warrior woman in her own right. "The fight is over," Grey Wolf announced. "Standing Bear has proven his skill and his control. More importantly, he has proven his character. He could have humiliated my son but chose not to. He fought with honor against an opponent he loved, and that is the hardest battle any man faces." He turned to Standing Bear. "You have my blessing to marry my daughter. But know this, you are taking someone precious beyond measure. Treat her with anything less than absolute devotion, and I will come for you myself." Standing Bear nodded, unable to speak around the tightness in his throat. Morning Rain came to him, her hands gentle on his wounds, and for the first time in 5 years, they stood together without hiding, without shame, without distance. Swift Arrow approached slowly. His face still held traces of anger and hurt, but something else was there now too. Resignation perhaps. Or the beginning of acceptance. "I do not forgive you yet," Swift Arrow said quietly. "But I will try. For my sister's sake, and for the memory of what we were. Do not make me regret this, brother." Standing Bear met his eyes. "I will spend every day earning back your trust. And Swift Arrow, thank you. For loving her enough to let her go." Spring came early that year, melting the snow and filling the rivers with rushing water. Standing Bear and Morning Rain were married on the first warm day, when the plains exploded with new grass and the world felt impossibly alive. 2 tribes gathered to witness the union that had been 5 years in the making. The ceremony blended Lakota and Cheyenne traditions, honoring both peoples, both families. Swift Arrow stood as witness, his face still carrying shadows of their fight, but present. That was enough. That was everything. When Standing Bear led his bride back to his village, the Oglala Lakota received her with open arms. Morning Rain was not just any woman, she was the daughter of a great war chief, sister to a legendary warrior, and now wife to their leader. But more than that, she was Morning Rain, whose kindness and wisdom quickly won hearts. She fit into Standing Bear's lodge like she had always been there. The first night they were truly alone together. After all the ceremonies and celebrations, Standing Bear found himself strangely nervous. They had waited so long. What if reality could not match the dream? Morning Rain seemed to sense his thoughts. She smiled, that rare beautiful smile he had cherished in secret for years, and pulled him close. "We have spent 5 years building this moment in our minds," she whispered against his ear. "Whatever happens now will be perfect because it is real, and it is ours, and no one can take it from us." She was right. What they found together that night, and in all the nights that followed, was better than any dream because it was solid, warm, imperfect, and absolutely real. But happiness, Standing Bear learned, was not the end of struggle. It was just a different kind of challenge. The Crow remained angry about the refused alliance. Raids increased along the borders. White settlers pushed further into tribal lands, bringing soldiers and promises that turned to lies. Standing Bear found himself leading war parties more often, negotiating more desperately, watching his world slowly change in ways he could not stop. Through it all, Morning Rain was his foundation. She attended councils when appropriate, offering perspectives that often shifted discussions in unexpected directions. She tended to wounded warriors with skilled hands. She taught young women and men alike, passing on both Cheyenne and Lakota knowledge. And at night, in the privacy of their lodge, she reminded Standing Bear that he was more than just a chief. He was a man, a husband, someone allowed to be afraid and uncertain and imperfect. "You carry everything," she told him one night when he returned from a particularly brutal encounter with soldiers. "Let me carry some of it. That is why we are 2 people, not one." Swift Arrow came to visit 6 months after the wedding. The first night, he and Standing Bear sat awkwardly around the fire, old wounds still tender. Then Morning Rain, with characteristic wisdom, stood up. "I am going to visit Singing Woman. You 2 need to talk without me watching. And if you have not worked out your differences by the time I return, I will knock your heads together myself." After she left, silence filled the lodge. Finally, Swift Arrow spoke. "She is happy. I see it in everything she does. The way she moves, the way she speaks. Even the way she argues with you. A hint of a smile touched his face. She always did have a sharp tongue. I am glad you can see it, Standing Bear said carefully. Her happiness means everything to me. I know. I think I always knew. I was just too angry to admit it. Swift Arrow poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling upward. I have been thinking about what you said during our fight. About how we were fighting for the same thing, her happiness. You were right. My pride made me blind to what actually mattered. I should have come to you sooner. The secret was wrong, even if the intentions were good. Perhaps. Or perhaps everything happened exactly as it needed to. We were all younger 5 years ago. Maybe this was the right time, even though it felt like the wrong way. Swift Arrow looked at Standing Bear directly. I want my brother back. Not the guilty stranger you have been since the fight, but the friend who once pulled me out of quicksand and teased me about my terrible aim with a bow. Can we find our way back to that? Standing Bear felt something unlock in his chest. I would like nothing more. They talked through the night, reclaiming old patterns of friendship, building new ones on top of the old. By the time Morning Rain returned, she found them laughing over stories from their youth, the tension finally broken. As the months became years, Standing Bear and Morning Rain's lodge filled with life. First came a daughter, strong and fierce from birth, who Morning Rain named Star That Walks, for she seemed determined to do everything early. Then a son, quiet and observant, whom Standing Bear named Wind Talker, for he seemed to understand things before they were spoken. The children grew up hearing stories of two tribes, learning both Lakota and Cheyenne ways. They represented the bridge their parents had built through love and courage, proof that different peoples could become one family. But the world beyond the tribes continued to darken. More white settlers came. More soldiers. More treaties that meant nothing. More restrictions on where tribes could hunt, where they could travel, where they could live. Standing Bear watched the buffalo herds dwindle. He watched disease brought by newcomers devastate villages. He watched the old ways strain under pressure that seemed impossible to resist. One night, when Standing Bear sat staring into the fire with defeat heavy in his eyes, Morning Rain took his hand. Tell me what you are thinking, she said softly. That I have failed. That everything I have done, all the fighting and negotiating and sacrificing, has only slowed the inevitable. Our children will not know the world we knew. They will live in a place smaller, harder, controlled by people who do not understand them. Perhaps. Or perhaps they will be the ones who learn to walk in both worlds. Perhaps having a Lakota father and Cheyenne mother, seeing how different peoples can love and build together, will give them tools we never had. She squeezed his hand. You have not failed, my love. You have fought. You are still fighting. That matters, even if victory is not what we hoped it would be. How did you become so wise? Morning Rain smiled. I loved a man who was too stubborn to give up, even when giving up would have been easier. He taught me that courage is not winning. It is continuing even when winning seems impossible. Standing Bear pulled her close, drawing strength from her warmth. I do not know what I would have done without you. All those years of being alone, carrying everything myself, I do not know how I survived. But you did survive. And then you found the courage to fight for me. And now we survive together, which is much better. Years passed. Standing Bear's hair began to show silver. Morning Rain developed laugh lines around her eyes. Their children grew tall and capable. Star That Walks became a healer, carrying forward singing woman's knowledge. Wind Talker became a negotiator, able to talk with white officials in their own language, using diplomacy where force had failed. The day came when Standing Bear could no longer lead war parties. His knees hurt in cold weather. His eyesight was not what it had been. The young warriors looked at him with respect but also pity, seeing an old chief whose time was passing. Let it pass, Morning Rain told him gently. You have given enough. Let the young ones lead now. We have earned the right to watch sunsets and tell stories and simply be. So Standing Bear stepped back from the chief's role, passing the title to Red Cloud Son, a fierce young man with good judgment. It felt strange at first, being just a man instead of a leader. But as time went on, Standing Bear discovered unexpected freedom in ordinariness. He spent his days with Morning Rain, teaching grandchildren, attending ceremonies but not leading them. They took walks along the river where they had first met all those years ago. They talked about everything and nothing. They held hands like young people, even though their hands were now wrinkled and spotted with age. One evening, sitting outside their lodge watching the sun paint the western sky in shades of fire, Morning Rain leaned against Standing Bear's shoulder. "Do you have regrets?" she asked quietly. "About the alliance you refused? About the path we chose?" Standing Bear was silent for a moment, thinking. "I regret the pain we caused Swift Arrow. I regret the years we spent apart when we could have been together. But this?" He gestured at the scene before them, their children's lodges nearby, smoke rising from cook fires, the sound of grandchildren laughing, the vast sky stretching endlessly overhead. "This I do not regret. Not for a single moment. You were worth every sacrifice. This life we built together was worth everything." Morning Rain was quiet for so long Standing Bear thought she might have fallen asleep. Then she spoke, her voice thick with emotion. "When I was a young woman, I used to pray for courage. I thought courage meant being strong, being fierce, being unafraid. But you taught me different. Courage is loving someone even when that love might destroy everything else you hold dear. Courage is choosing truth over comfortable lies. Courage is fighting for happiness even when duty says you should settle for less. We learned it together," Standing Bear said. "Neither of us would have found the courage alone." As the sun sank below the horizon, Standing Bear thought about the young man he had been, standing in the snow wrestling with an impossible choice. That version of himself had been so afraid, so certain that loving Morning Rain meant betraying everyone else. But he had learned that real betrayal would have been denying the truth of his heart. Real weakness would have been choosing the easy path of duty over the hard path of authenticity. His people had survived not because he married for alliance, but because he married for love. That love had given him strength through the darkest times, wisdom through the hardest decisions, hope through the bleakest moments. The Lakota chief had faced his greatest enemy, his own forbidden love. And he had won, not by defeating that love, but by surrendering to it completely. In that surrender, he had found not weakness but power. Not betrayal but truth. Not loss but everything worth living for. "Come inside," Morning Rain said, standing and offering her hand. "The night is cold, and I am not as young as I once was." Standing Bear took her hand, feeling the familiar calluses and strength of her fingers. "You are exactly as young as you need to be." She laughed, the sound still as beautiful as it had been the first time he heard it all those years ago. They walked into their lodge together, closing the door against the gathering darkness, creating their own warmth against winter's chill. And in that warmth, surrounded by everything they had built and everyone they loved, Standing Bear finally felt complete. The war was over. The choice was made. The forbidden love was now the foundation of everything good in his world. He had won not by conquering his heart, but by following it home. The end.